Hello.
I would talk, but I'm busy shaking my butt because that groove was so thick. Everybody, welcome to Drummers Education Connection. I'm Bart Robley, and I'm here to make a fool out of myself and introduce my three good friends and amazing drummers, great people down in San Diego. The person that you just heard playing an amazing groove, the positive energy hand grenade, Rick Stojak.
Hey, everybody. That was The Sweetest Taboo by Sade. That group.
There you go. There you go. And then down in Tucson, Arizona, we have Chip Ritter.
Hello.
Up in the Bay Area, our good friend and the smartest person I know, Jeremy Steinkohler. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to Drummers Education Connection. Hey, we wanted to talk today about bringing the right kit to the right gig, you know, making sure that you have the right gear, the right drum set, the right cymbals and everything for the right gig. And we thought that was a good topic. And so we wanted to talk about that. Before we get started, we're going to do our normal things. We're going to talk about good things. And we're also going to talk about, if you want to help us keep the lights on, you can go to Patreon and become a Deck Patreon and contribute to the show. Just helping us pay for the bills that helps Deck run. That would be a very cool thing for us. We'd really appreciate that. You can also, if you notice our friend Rick Stojak down in San Diego, he has an incredible Drummers Education Connection t-shirt on that he's wearing. You can go to our website, drummersedcon.com, and you can buy one of those t-shirts. That would be cool. And then we like to do good things. It's a little thing that each one of us talks about what we got going on in our lives with drumming or our personal lives, whatever, that are good things outside of drumming sometimes. And that just kind of make us tick. So I'm going to kick it down to the sweetest taboo, man. Rick Stojak. What do you got going on, brother? What's happening?
You know what, man? I'm always trying to bring more value to my lessons and make it more fun and more productive. And my dreams of getting cameras on my student kit have come true. And it's a lot of work and a lot of energy. And I'm finally making it happen. And I could show you guys really, really quick some of my camera angles.
Just don't press the eject button.
Yeah. You see that? Exactly.
Poof! Through the roof he goes.
That looks good, Rick. That looks good.
Yeah,
man. Kit. And then this is the remote kit. So
you have like a little drone flying around the studio?
Yeah, exactly. I could do that kind of thing.
Man,
that's I'm learning to change, like I'm making videos where I'm changing the lighting and the look like that on the students.
Rick, I just got to say, man, I got to compliment you on your studio one more time because your studio looks killer.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Jeremy. I am just love building it up and my mind never stops. Like, how can I make it more fun? How can I make the lessons more productive? And I tell you what, I've had a lot of my students say, man, I better start practicing more because I want to get some really good videos. And so it's worked out really, really well. So
that's cool, man.
That's so bitchin', Rick. We've got to do something from your studio. I know we can't do Deck Day there because it's too small, but we've got to all of us get in that room together and do something. We just have
we definitely do.
We're gonna do something.
Yeah,
we're gonna do something. We got it. We'll squeeze you in here. We'll do it.
Yeah. So, Chip, what about you? What do you got going on that's good, bud?
Man, one of my students named Chelsea ended up auditioning and she got the gig for the Calvary Chapel gig. So she's now the new worship drummer over there. And that's the second student that I've had that has gotten a gig at a church playing for full-time for the church. So it was very cool.
That's
Chelsea at Calvary.
That's great.
Always gratifying when your students have successes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Good for you. Good for you, Chip. That is
and
so
yo,
cool.
Fred Rock is watching. Fred Fisher's on.
Fred!
Thanks for watching, Fred.
Fred is one of my favorite people in the world. Fred is absolutely like just one of the coolest guys in the world. Matter of fact, Fred, since you're watching, I'm going to be calling you a little bit later today. So be waiting for my call. Jeremy, what's happening with you, buddy? What's happening
if you send a donation, you too can get a phone call from Bart later today.
Right on. Cameo for Bart.
Oh yeah.
Things are good, man. Things are good. I had 4 gigs this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it was kind of a long weekend, but a really rewarding one. And 2 of them were album release shows for the Erica Oba Trio, and those went fantastic. The first one was actually one of the best nights of playing live jazz I've ever experienced. I just felt like we were super dialed and such great deep listening happening and great playing and really attentive audience. It was awesome.
Wow,
That's so. Was that the picture that you put up on Facebook the other day? Was that?
Yeah, that was one of the pictures I put up. Yeah.
So cool, man.
Thanks. Yeah, it was super exciting. Do you guys mind if I play just a little, like 30 seconds of one of the tracks?
Let's
go for it. I want to hear it.
All right.
Please.
Tell me if the volume's all right. It's all right?
Yeah.
Here's another, just a real quick one. This is the one
nice. Tasty.
Nice.
Thank you.
Wow,
Dude,
Jeremy,
you are such a well-rounded drummer.
Oh.
I mean, dude,
Wow.
we got to see you during Deck Day perform, and listening to that, I mean, you can play it all, dude.
Thanks,
You're
man.
amazing.
Wow,
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Anyways, that's my good thing.
that's
Awesome.
a great thing. Your cymbal sound was so pure and crisp too.
Yeah. Very much so.
Unbelievable. Really
Killer
nice.
stuff. Well, I got a couple cool things going on. I got the new Ruins album is in the works that's my side project, and I've got I'm not going to say who it is yet, but I got a shredder guitar player. Once we get the track in, I'll let everybody know who it is that is playing a solo on one of the songs. I'm really excited about that. That's cool. Gig front's great. Went out and did some great shows in Arizona. Did not find Sasquatch for all of those
Damn.
people.
Oh man.
But I'm looking for him. There's a whole story there. And last but not least, this is the most important one. I have a student, Olivia, and Olivia has been studying with me for so long. I've watched her grow up, and she has become such an incredible young lady and such an amazing drummer. And I get a text from her mom this morning. Hey, can we move Olivia's lesson a little earlier today? Yeah, sure. Yeah, she's getting fitted for her uniform. She's playing in the Rose Parade this year.
Oh, cool.
And I'm so excited for Olivia, man. She is the epitome of a student that comes in every week just ready to play, man. She's ready to rumble. She always plays great and just amazing. So I'm very excited for her. I'm very, very, very proud of her that she is going to be in the Rose Parade. So that's my good thing. So let's kick it off, guys. Let's go and talk about the right kit for the right gig. We all have the story of the person or the people that have done the opposite, right? I know I've been guilty of that, taking the wrong kit to the wrong gig. And there's a lot to it. It's not just about the drum set. It's definitely, we just heard with Jeremy, what he played. It's about taking the right cymbals to the gig. It's about using the correct size drumsticks. We've talked about that. What's in your bag or your bag of tricks, whatever we call the show. We're talking about what's in your stick bag, you know, what size sticks do you have? So there's a lot to this subject. And so because of what I just said about Jeremy, you're so well-rounded. You do so many great gigs and so many different styles. let's talk about what your thoughts are, Jeremy, on taking the right kit for the gig. Let's hear it.
This is a great topic. And actually, I have some photos queued up. If you guys want to see some photos of different drums I play and different why I choose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me a second here. All right, can you see that?
Oh yeah, there it is. That's the one.
Oh
So
yeah.
this is the kit that I plan pretty frequently now. This is it's basically a jazz kit, but it is fairly versatile. And part of what will determine what kit I'm bringing to what gig is the sizes, and part of what determines will be the heads that I've got on them and how I've got them tuned up. Of course, I could change the tuning, but you're bringing what's going to work. You can within the range of tuning that you can make it sound however you can make it sound. So this is an 18-inch kick, 12-inch rack, and a 14-inch floor. And I use this on all my jazz gigs. It's a great little bebop kit, and I also use it on my New Orleans R&B gigs. The band you guys saw and sat in with, the Bonafides, because I can tune the bass drum down a little bit, and it gets pretty punchy. I got those modern vintage 2 Aquarian heads on the toms, and I can tune those down and get a real nice fat sound even on those smaller drums. So that's the kit I'm using more often than not, but it's not always that. So I also have this kit, which is my Yamaha Maple Custom. That's actually that's an 18-inch kick, which I don't use anymore, but I've got a 20 and a 22, and I've got all different kinds of toms. I got 10, 12, 13, 14, 16. And when I'm playing a gig that's outside, like a festival gig, or like here's an example, like one of the Sausalito Jazz and Blues Festival, I'll bring that kit because it's just beefier. I've got those clear heads on it, 2 plies, and they're punchier, and the bass drum's got just more body to it. So when I want a bigger drum sound, I'm going to bring the bigger kit. And of course, I want a really big drum sound.
There you go. I love it.
Like if I'm, or if that doesn't quite fit the bill, I might even do something like this.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a kit for a person that never plays a gig.
Yeah.
Is that
Anyway,
you, Jeremy, the kid?
what's that?
Is that you? Is that a little
No,
you?
no, that's at the NAMM show. I just took those.
Oh.
But seriously though, like, if I'm playing something that's rock music, like I play this Halloween gig every year, we're covered the band like the Who or the B-52s or the Police. I'm bringing a kit that's got more muscle. I'm bringing a kit that's beefier. It's got the big fatter sound that I can use, and I don't have to work as hard to make it sound right for the music. And if I'm playing a lighter gig, a quieter gig, a coffee house, or not that I can't remember the last time I played a coffee house, but whatever, a smaller intimate gig or something
Like
that's
that restaurant that we
right. Then I'm going to bring the smaller kit because I can make the drums sound right for the music and right for the venue without having to work hard to be delicate or work hard to be heavy, right? The drums kind of respond to the way I play based on the sound that I'm trying to create to fit the music and fit the venue. Now, I have the luxury of having more than one kit. And I have that Yamaha kit that's modular, so I can kind of go big or I can go small with it. Not everybody has that. But even my students who are playing gigs and starting a gig professionally or semi-professionally, and they have if they're doing a range of stuff, I'm like, hey, you know what? It might be time to start thinking about a second kit for different kinds of music. So it just depends, If you're just a heavy metal drummer, that's all you play, and you've got your one band, and maybe you do a couple other things like it. You don't need 2 different kits. You can get away with what you got. But that's kind of the story for me. And then, there's always the snare drum question too. I've got 4 or 5 different snares. Mostly I'll play the Ludwig Black Beauty, but I've got two really beautiful Brooks snares as well that Mike D'Amico made that just sound amazing, and they're warmer. So I'll, depending on the venue, I might bring those too.
On the Brooks kit, that was the one that we played the night that we sat in, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That kit really that was so much fun, and it played really well. Like the response was amazing. You had it tuned well, and it sounded great. We played the 18-inch kick drum on that one. Do you have a 20 or 22 for that? And if not, why? Just out of curiosity.
I don't. The short answer is price. I mean, at the time when I bought the kit, I was able to afford the kit, and another bass drum would have added another $1,200 on the top of that. And I was like, I think what I'll end up doing is getting down the road, my next kit will be a devoted rock kit. That's with a 22 and but there's something nice too about having different kits as opposed to the modular kit. Like this kit is just set up. It's always got the same head. It's always got the same tuning. It's for this styles of music. And I got this other kit and it's dialed for these other styles of music instead of having to, take the heads off and retune it. And like I used to do. I used to have this, for years, I just played on the one Yamaha kit and I would change the heads for different kinds of gigs and the tuning. And that's cool, but it's a lot of work. So now I don't have to do that.
Jeremy,
Rick,
what I like is your lightweight Yamaha hardware.
Oh.
You're playing so many gigs, and when we were up there helping you tear down was just such a breeze. Like that lightweight hardware, it's that aluminum. It's just so
the bomb. Highly recommend. Lightweight Yamaha crosstown hardware or something comparable. Man, that was a game changer for me.
Yeah,
carry your whole hardware, all your hardware, including your pedal, in one 12, 15-pound bag, and it's just incredible.
Yep.
I'm in and out now. And like, so when I arrive and after I parked, I can be set up in 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Pretty quick. Yeah.
That was really cool when the hardware that you had. I would love to do something like that. I don't know how it would hang on the road. That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
I mean,
Fred just asked how stable is the lightweight hardware. So that's your concern too, and that was exactly my concern when I bought it. I was like, I don't know, will this hold up if I want to hit hard? And I bought it anyway. I'm just going to take the plunge and see. And I have never ever once toppled a stand. The only thing I'll say it is not good for is a suspended floor tom.
What about this? And this was my concern with it, is that you're doing a gig and it's an outdoor gig and it gets windy. Do you think it would pick up a cymbal? No. Okay.
Like Mary Poppins.
Totally. I do. Yeah.
No,
Rick,
man.
what about you? You don't think it will? It won't.
I've never had any issues with it. Highly recommend it. 100%. No reservations.
Cool. Well, and I think you have to look at the types of gigs you often play and kind of match your gear to it. You're driving in San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley. There's a lot of traffic. You're just trying to find a great place to park. You might find a great place to park, but it's like a far away from the entrance to the venue. So, man, that's where light hardware is a really, really, really big deal. So, but if you're rocking out like Bart, I mean, you're playing all these club gigs. You guys have, playing these big casinos. I think you need durability. I think is super, super priority for what you're doing.
Completely, man. I mean, I've got, we're setting up and tearing down nightly, and and even though everything's in a flight case, dude, it takes a beating. That stuff takes a beating, and that's kind of why. And there's been I can think of a handful of gigs where you start playing and the wind whips up, and it's like, oh my God, your cymbals are going all over the place. And that was the first thing I thought of with the lightweight hardware when you talked about it was that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't play in a hurricane with it,
See, and I played in a hurricane last week.
Dude,
hey,
maybe
when it's showtime, it's showtime. I don't give a crap what's going on. Get the hell out of the way. I got to get to the stage.
Show must go on.
Show must go on.
A lot of times students will check with me and say, hey, it's time for me to buy a drum kit or upgrade my kit. What should I get? And I feel like the personality of the individual is really, really, really key. You
Mm.
know, what's your vibe? What's your look? Let's start seeing. And if you don't know, well, then the fun begins. You could start going on to all the different websites and going on all the social media, and you might decide that a black drum kit is your thing. You know, you want that look, or an acrylic thing for that more blingy thing. And so, or maybe a natural wood kit, because maybe it's more of like a jazzy gig and you want your kit to look like a fine piece of furniture. Then you've got to look at the style you're playing. So I tend to play more rock stuff. So to me, I always think that it's really essential to have at least 2 toms mounted and then a floor tom. So at least a 3 tom kit is what I generally recommend, because it doesn't mean that you've got to bring all of those toms, right? In fact, usually, as we know, which as you start gigging, if you're not, it's a lot easier to bring less stuff. The more you bring, it's a lot of extra work. So fit that into your equation too. To me, I like bringing a lot of stuff. It's just more fun. That's why, you know, I get a lot of we get a lot of laughs out of my roto toms. But you know, I'm like, if I could do that, oh man, that it's just so fun to me. So for me, it's worth the energy and the time to bring lots of stuff.
I got it, guys. James Harrison, who always has really terrific comments and is a watcher of our show, says the right kit is something you learn over time as you expand your knowledge and abilities. More music styles require different sounds, feels, and touch. And as we mature, we add equipment to match whatever need each gig requires.
Very well said.
That's well said.
Very well said.
Yeah.
Very nice. Thanks, James. Wow. That's
I
fantastic.
think I also think that 2 things really play into the equation. Jeremy, you already mentioned this, but a snare drum. You know, the snare drum is going to completely change the sound of the instrument, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just, you can, you know, and now we're talking studio but you can be in a recording session and just change the snare drum, and suddenly you have a whole new vibe. You have a whole new kit, right? Because of the snare drum. And then also, I think, you know, it goes without saying, cymbals, you know, so having the right cymbals for the job is incredibly important. I've recently made some changes to some substantial changes to my touring kit for very specific reasons. Maybe we can get into that later, but I agree with you 100%. Just echoing what you said, sizes depending on the gig. I have bass drums. I have 20 all the way through 26.
Whoa.
Yeah. And,
26.
yeah. And my normal, what I carry, what goes on tour with me is a 22. That's what goes on tour with me.
Yeah.
But like if I get a small jazz gig, or I'm doing a smaller gig with a band, they want me to sub for the drummer, or I'm doing something stylistically here in the studio. This is a 20-inch, 18 by 20-inch Gretsch Renown maple drum. Sounds fantastic. I'll take that out to the gig. Small drum, stays out of the way, not a lot of weight to carry around, and it kicks like a mule. This bass drum just sounds fantastic. And I know we don't all have, like you said, the luxury of having 2 or 3 kits and a whole bunch of cymbals. So I always tell my students, when it's time to buy stuff, don't necessarily think that you need to get rid of, especially with cymbals, get rid of something, just add to your collection. The 3 of us are with Sabian cymbals, Jeremy, Rick, and myself. And I have a bunch of ride cymbals. I have a pre-Sabian crescent cymbal that I still use. It's a Stanton Moore wide ride and a pair of Stanton Moore hats. And they work fantastic for jazz gigs. They're real dry. It's a big ride cymbal. It's 22 inches. Man, it just sounds great, real washy. So I think those things are very important too.
I would say, I want you guys to agree or disagree with this, or whatever you have to say. The cymbals that you choose to bring for the gig are more important than the drums. What do you think about that?
I agree.
I tend to agree. I have a lot of gigs that I do where there's a backline provided. And so the drum kit is there, and I actually welcome it because it's just honestly a lot easier, and then it's always like a nice challenge to be able to adapt to whatever kit is provided. But the cymbals, that's a different story. They've really got to fit the gig, and there's something about the feel of the cymbals too.
Yeah.
It's not just how they sound. It's like, man, that I could really dig into that ride. Some of them just work better for me than others as far as different models.
I play backline kits all the time. And I'm with Rick. I welcome it, when I'm flying to Wisconsin for some shows this weekend, and I'm taking a stick bag and my in-ear monitors. That's what I show up with. And it's really easy. And honestly, Jeremy, you hit the nail on the head, because I can get whatever kit is on the stage. If I have a little bit of time, I can get it sounding great. Even if it doesn't have the Aquarian heads on it, I can get through a gig or two with it. But man, when the cymbals, when I'm used to my cymbal sound, and I want, I use the HHX Evolution crashes, and they just sound like glass shattering. I love these cymbals, and I'll get in there and they'll have these cymbals that are like, they're too small, or they sound like manhole covers. It's just like that's the part that kills me on backline things. It's not the drums, it's the cymbals. Yeah, I agree with that.
Chip, what do you think?
Well, I kind of feel like an odd man out, because over the years I've kind of culled it into one kit that I use mainly for almost all the gigs I play. I rely on some tuning here and there, but pretty much it's going to be the same gear for me. I've got the hi-hats set up the way I want them. I've got my signature reflector crash. I got my Stuart Copeland signature ride, and it's just, I use it. I depend on my attitude and my energy from gig to gig, depending on what style of music I'm playing, from light jazz to heavy rock to reggae to funk to soul to all kinds of music. I just basically play my same kit. So I don't really, I feel my kit is the right kit for the right gig, and whatever the gig is, I kind of make that happen by how I play and what attitude I bring.
Woohoo, Chip, that's fantastic. And it's true, because you know what? You are such a good musician, such a good drummer, that you can adapt. You can play that kit from jazz to rock to funk, and you've got your brand. So
yeah, I'm always envious of people that have drum options that can bring a bigger kit, but at the same time, I've got that 20-inch kick that's got a lot of subtones to it, because it's an aluminum drum by Trick Drums, and it's got a lot of deep back bassy sound to it. So I mean, I don't really feel limited by that. I feel like my kit's the right kit for me.
Mm-hmm.
I love what you said about your attitude, Jeremy. I apologize. I didn't mean to step on you. I really like what you said, that you bring to the gig your attitude and the way that you play for the gig. That's huge.
Yeah, sure.
Rely a lot on that.
Of course. I mean, and no matter what drums and cymbals you bring, like, if you can sound great or you can sound terrible, right? Like, you can have a really terrific drummer on a crappy kit sounding great, and you can have a really crappy drummer on a perfect kit, beautiful, great cymbals, just the right, sounding awful, right?
Yeah.
So
sounding,
it's the drummer, but and not the drums, but it's both, right? Like, you want the drummer and the drums, and the drums that the drummer wants to play and make the sound. Like, we're trying to contribute to the music, this layer of sonic input, time, feel, all that stuff too, but the sound. And so much of that is how you play, so much of that, but then there's also the sticks you choose, and the heads, and the tuning, and the cymbals, and the drums, all that. And that has an impact. All those ingredients together make up that final result. And so
exactly,
I think it's important to get the right tools for the job that suit you,
right,
that help you achieve that goal sonically as best as possible and as most easily as possible.
I think that's what brings us, all of us drummers together, is all of this gear, because the truth is the drums are definitely the most versatile, or it's not the same instrument. It's the most flexible kind of instrument. You could have a small kit or a big kit, and this is the stuff that why I think we bond so well, is because we could talk about all of this stuff and share ideas.
Well, it's the same way piano players geek out over pedals, right? I mean, that's their arena of tweaking their sound and shaping it for the tune and for the band. And so they've got these pedal boards and stuff. And for us, it's all acoustic, or mostly. And so, there's this great story about Bill Evans. You guys know Bill Evans, a great jazz piano player. Super beautiful light touch player, and he was at some jam session or some thing happening, and all the piano players were complaining about how stiff the piano was and how brittle it sounded. And then Bill Evans took his turn on the piano, and everyone was just like, "Oh my God, that sounds like a completely different instrument." It didn't sound brittle and tinny. It sounded like whatever, rich, and it was like, wow, touch
in the master's hands. Yeah,
exactly.
And you're saying what Rick said a second ago. It's you bring your personality into it, doesn't, and your touch. Yeah.
And it's the word, I think, is customizable. That's what a drum set is.
Yeah. One of the things, and maybe I'm stepping into dangerous territory here, but I had a story one time. We were story about Sasquatch. Okay?
Sasquatch.
We're going to do a show about Sasquatch after our discussion before I got on this morning. I did this gig, and this was 100 years ago. I mean, it was a million years ago. And I've, all of our kids have changed over the years. This poor guy, he was at the gig. He was there before us, and we were like, this was back in the day of playing the Hollywood clubs, and you brought your own gear, and we sound check, move your gear off stage. Every band sound check. There's gear everywhere. You put your stuff on, you play, you do your show. This guy had a drum set, and it was one of those ones that it went, from a 6-inch tom all the way to an 18-inch, mounted tom, plus 2 floor toms, 2 kick drums, a snare drum, like 8 billion cymbals, and it's all on a rack that's bolted together. But and he had a socket set putting this thing together. He was there before us. I'm serious, man.
I believe it. Yeah.
And he was there before us, and he was there way after I was done and packed up and ready to leave. And I really wanted to see this guy play. God, he's got this drum set that I'm going to witness the second coming of Keith Moon or something, and literally. He was a great drummer, but I'm like, why'd you bring all that crap, man? If you're not going to use it, and it is it's a look thing too. And so I'm not faulting the guy. He wanted to bring that drum set. That's what he wanted to play. But I think with age comes a little bit of wisdom, and like, well, you never touched any of them. You never played any of those toms, What are your guys' thoughts on that? I'm just going to throw it at you.
When I was a kid, I was like about 13, and I had just gotten another drum set, and I put the drums together, and it worked with my other drum set. And so I had 3 bass drums and like 20 pieces of gear, and I had maybe 4 cymbals. And it made me feel like, I'm a fantastic rock drummer because of the way it looked. And the way it was just an overwhelming drum set. And so my ego fed into it a lot about it. I had a lot of it tied to my ego.
That makes sense. I kind of think that that we really do have to consider the style that we're playing, like if Jeremy did a jazz gig and showed up with that huge kit, it would be just
awesome. It would be awesome, Rick.
But that bar band, remember we played that video of that bar band that I saw in Florida? Yeah. Like if guy had that giant kit, that actually would work, Maybe his overplaying wouldn't be so bad if he voiced it around the big giant kit.
Bart, the only thing I got to say about that guy is he's never getting laid.
Oh.
I mean,
See, I was gonna say it. I restrained. I didn't say it.
well,
I
think
didn't
about it.
say
You know, like you said, the band's all packed up, and you know whatever your whatever action you got going on, and he's sitting there packing up with his screwdriver and his ratchet set, and by the time he's done, all the chicks are gone. You know,
That's true. It is true.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know what?
be careful.
Show's over. Thanks, folks.
that is true.
I can't. I got nothing.
There's
Here's
no doubt.
one of the things that I recently did, and I kind of agree with Chip. I mean, as far as like my kid is mine when it comes to this, for a long time I carry, and I specifically whittled my stuff down for a couple of specific reasons I'll get into. I'm playing now 1 up, 1 down. For a long time I played 2 up, 1 down, and I changed it from that to 1 up, 2 down, and now just 1 up, 1 down. Exactly what Chip's playing. I will change out the size of the kick drum depending on the gig, and I'll change out the cymbals depending on the gig. If it's another stylistic gig, I get called in to do something else. But I did it because what Rick was saying. Also, I do a lot of backline gigs, right? And at a backline gig, I like my ride cymbal right here and my toms right here. I'm tall, so a lot of times there wasn't a stand that I could mount the 2 toms off of the bass drum, right, and have my 2 toms here. There would just be, okay, I'm going to take one of the toms off and play 1 up tonight. Well, I think that's great because you're like, okay, I'm really in the zone. I have to focus, but I also think that's a double-edged sword, and that I just want to be comfortable from the second I sit down. So I've changed to, okay, I'm going to go 1 up, and I went 2 down, and then I lost that just simply because, you know, I just don't need the second floor tom. I'm just going to carry the 1 floor tom with me. I'm very comfortable right here. It works well for me, and whatever gig I find myself in, I can play this configuration. You know, I don't need a special stand for the toms or my gong drum or whatever. I can pull the gig off with this, you know. So I think that's, you know, for me, that's what works for me anyway. What do you guys think about that? The way you're set up. What do you think about that?
I used to set up really low on my seat for good double bass, and then on the jazz gigs I'd raise my stool really high so I could get my toes down and light on the hi-hat and the bass drum and feather everything. And then over time I've found that medium range for my stool that just works perfect for both ways, so I don't really move too much, and my hi-hat height has gotten a little lower over the years. But overall, I think I've found where I like it, and I kind of keep it there.
I think it's just set up for comfort, and I think that we're always making adjustments and experimenting, and I think it's always good to experiment with seat height and different layouts, and I think everything just comes down to what we always talk about, that we've got to serve the music, and it's not just the parts that we play. I think it's the gear. One observation I've had at a lot of concerts, which probably most of them are rock concerts, is people love a giant drum set. Look at those drums. You know, you hear it, like you see a giant double kick thing, you know. You go to see a metal show, and if it doesn't have 2 kicks, you're like, whatever, you know.
All I think when I see that big kid is that my back hurts.
Mark, I had questions about backline for you. Like when you know you have backline that it's provided, what do you bring? Do you bring your own snare? Obviously, your cymbals.
Let's go around. Let's go around the horn on this one.
Okay.
So I used to do that. I used to have a flight case that I brought my snare, my kick drum pedal, and a bag of cymbals. And I literally I've got to the point where I'm like, look, I'm going to play whatever they give me, because when I'm flying, we fly so often and so much, and it's such a hassle. You're changing planes. You fly to Austin. You fly out of Austin to here or wherever. You're changing planes. You're carrying stuff. I got a carry-on bag with clean clothes for the next few days. I got a stick bag in there. I've got a small line mixer with that I plug my mix into, my in-ear monitors, and my computer. And a drum key. So my stick bag, my drum key, and my in-ear monitors. That's what I bring to play the gig. I used to carry my cymbals. I did. But again, I kind of like what Chip says. I'm just relying on all the years of work that I've done, that whatever you give me, I'm gonna do my best to play the best I can. Case in point to Jeremy's thing about cymbals, and then I'll shut up. I did a gig in Oklahoma one time. I forget the town, but we were in Oklahoma, and it was a New Year's Eve gig. And the backline guy says to me, "I got you a set of sonar drums. You're gonna love it. I got you a set of sonars." I'm great. I show up, and my drum set was a sonar kick drum, a sonar snare drum, a hi-hat, and a ride cymbal. The hi-hat and the ride cymbal were Sabian B8s.
Oh.
I was okay. I was glad they were Sabians because they were B8s, but they sounded good. And that was my kit: a ride, a snare, a kick, and a hat. And it's a rock gig. So I'm like, what can I do? I can freak out, and how dare you, don't you know who I think I am, and freak out. But I was just like, well, okay, it's going to be challenging. But every drum fill instead of doing the that's what I did, and that was a real learning point for me, because you never know what you're getting into when you play backline. So be ready for whatever, and whatever you throw at me, I'm gonna give it hell.
Love it.
Jeremy, what about you? Oh, point at the wrong.
I bring with me like, if I know, like, just on Sunday, 2 days ago, I had a gig at a jazz club, and they were backlining the kit, and I brought cymbals, snare, and throne. Now I bring my throne unless I know where I'm going has got the kind of throne I want, because I feel like that's maybe the most important piece of equipment for me. Like, I need to feel comfortable, and if I'm on one of those cheap thrones with the thin, small disc of a cushion, I'm uncomfortable the whole time.
Yeah.
And when I sit in my rockin' sock that's cut and molded, it's like I'm comfortable. And that before I even play the drums, I'm comfortable, as opposed to before I play the drums, I'm uncomfortable. So to me, that's an important piece of equipment. And then cymbals, kick pedal, I'm not as particular about anymore. I feel like I can make the adjustment, like you're talking about, you guys. I can make the adjustment to adapt to the tension of whatever pedal I'm dealing with, or I can also, play with the spring if I need to. And I find that I'm not, those don't throw me off very much. So cymbals, possibly snare drum if I can carry, if it's not a hassle to bring it. And of course, stick bag. How about you guys?
Chip, what do you
right
bring?
on? I usually, if I'm playing a gig that has a backline kit and they don't specify whether there's cymbals or not, I'll take my cymbals, my stick bag, a snare, my throne, and my pedal. And usually if I'm able to do that, I feel really comfortable, like Jeremy said, before I play, and I'll feel set up, especially with my own throne. I think the throne is one of the most important pieces of gear that a drummer can own, because it's from what everything stems from. Everything comes from that place where you're sitting on your butt.
Yeah.
What was his name? Who was it that was talking about the piano bench as a throne? Oh,
Butch Trucks.
Butch Norton.
Butch Norton, I mean. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Drummer of Lucinda Williams. He was talking about how he switched from sitting on drum thrones to sitting on four-legged piano benches. And that's a massive game changer for him, just feeling grounded and connected and balanced. And he's sitting on a pole. And interesting.
Wow.
How about you, Rick?
What about you, Rick?
Well, I'm gonna bring cymbals, and I'm gonna bring my double pedal, depending on the gig. A lot of times I have to play double pedal, or like to play double pedal. And I'm with you, Jeremy, about the throne. I always bring my rock and sock tripod, so it folds up easy.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that I do is I bring drum heads too.
Mm.
I try to find out, well, what are the sizes? At least tom heads and a snare head, and that way, if I get there and it's just total garbage, then at least I could change it, you know. And if I can, like, sometimes to me, like, man, if you're providing a drum kit, I want to buy you a drum head, you know. And I'm like, I think it's a great way to promote Aquarian too. Like, somebody's like, hey, Rick's on my kit, and I've got some new Aquarians, you know. And so, you know, I think, you know, I've had people say, you know what, I'm going to just start using Aquarian from now on.
You're like the Johnny Appleseed of Aquarian drum.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge investment. I'm not talking about the whole kit, but oh man. The other thing I will do too is I'll look at the gear and I'll see what they have. And if it's adequate, I'm going to go with that, even if I brought stuff.
Right.
The other thing I bring is the Aquarian kick patch, which was a Bart Ropley concept, is the word that I have.
I'm looking at one right there. I want to throw a caveat into something here, because Rick, when you asked the question, I think you said fly gig. Well, I'm thinking fly gigs, however it came out. I'm thinking fly gigs. If I'm playing a backline kit in Florida and we're flying to the gig, I get on the plane with a bag of sticks and my in-ear monitors. That's what I do. I don't like to fly with a bunch of stuff. But let's say the four of us were doing a gig and we all had to share the kit. And it was a gig, right? It was I would do exactly what you said. I always bring I would bring my throne, my snare and snare stand, and probably my pedal. I'm going to assume that the cymbals are going to be okay. I might throw a bag of cymbals in, but because I do have a couple of, like, I have my cymbals that I tour with, and I have another bag of cymbals for local shows that are basically the same setup. Maybe the ride's a little bit different. I might grab that. And my reasoning for that is, you know, if you ever see Rick and I stand next to each other, we're really we're real close. But there's a little bit of a height difference. So if Rick's right before me and we're playing a 4-piece kit, I'm going to have to make a couple adjustments. So I found the best way to make the adjustments is, you know, my throne and my snare drum and the hi-hat. That's where my money's at. So I take the snare off the stage stand and all, because then I just put mine up there with the stand. I take that off. I put the pedal on, put the snare up, put my throne up, put the hi-hat where I want it, adjust the height. And if somebody says, you got to go now, okay, I can pull it off. But then I'll make the adjustment. Okay, I'm going to raise the ride a little bit. Oh, maybe flatten out the tom, move this cymbal over here. But I can, in a case like that, I can be ready to play like in less than 5 minutes. I don't do a lot of change. But I found with just those pieces of gear, you put them up there, you're already in position now because it's yours. That's my height, you know. Yeah. And that would be a challenge if Rick and I had that. Oh gosh, I gotta raise this stuff, or I gotta lower this stuff, whatever. You know, that makes the changeover.
We've done it. We've done it at the first deck day. I played, then you played, and we had what, maybe 10 minutes to adjust the kits, and then Rick Day in San Francisco. Chip and I had to share the same kit.
Well, that's why Rick brings a hacksaw with him. So if Bart's playing before him, he can just saw the legs down.
Well, the funny thing is when Rick and I walk in the room together, like, Rick will go in first, and everybody's like, he goes, ta-da, and then I walk in and I go, ho, ho, ho. Oh man, this is what happened to the show.
What were you going to say, Chip?
I was just going to say, you know, that's a different situation when you're playing a gig with a backline kit versus if you're sitting in with somebody else's drum set. If you're sitting in on a song, we don't really change much at all. We just play it as it lays.
Right.
You know?
Mhm.
Right.
That, yeah, Chip, totally. That night that we sat in, I walked up behind Jeremy's kit, and it was so cool because I walked up and I looked at the stick bag and I went to pick up a pair of sticks, and Jeremy, he just instinctively knew. He goes, "Here, try these, you'll like them." Okay. Away we went. I think that's also a sign of kind of respect. I don't want to, "Hey, Jeremy, I'm playing your kit. Let me retune it for you and get it sounding good." I mean, you know what I mean? What kind of, you're not going to do that.
Well, but
that was,
I wouldn't have minded if you like adjusted the throne height or the snare height or anything like that. That to me is like, that's what you have to do sometimes. You can't play a snare drum if it's 3 inches below the top of your thighs, Yeah, exactly.
the snare drum sounds like crap.
Well, this is something like I'll tell my students who are like playing at the Bandworks concert, right? Because we backline a kit because we have a whole bunch of bands perform back to back in a row. In a night, it might be, or in a day, there might be 12 bands. And I say, hey, take your time when you get up there on stage and then like get your throne height right, get your snare drum height right, get your cymbals angled how you like it, because you have a couple of minutes, you got to feel comfortable, and that's part of the gig. It's like this is the only chance you're going to have. And if you can't, you don't want to finish the gig and say, "Oh man, I couldn't hit the snare drum. I kept hitting the rim because the snare drum was too high." It's like, "Oh, why didn't you just lower it?"
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
And I think it's so important to work as a team with drummers. If there's someone before you or after you, to get set up and help them set up as fast as possible. Really work on. Think about the flow of the show and.
I want to. This made me think of something else. I have a student now who I love. She's awesome, and I played a gig it was like her event, and her band played, and then they hired a professional band to play after them. And so she had backlined the kit, so I was playing on her kit, and it was a nice, pretty brand new DW kit, and it had the original heads that had come with it, which were crap, and it wasn't tuned very well. And so I tuned it. I asked her, I said, "Okay, if I tune your drum?" She's like, "Oh, well, that'd be awesome. I've never done that before."
You can tune drums?
Right, exactly. They were tuned when I bought them. I don't know what the problem. So I tuned them up and got them to sound as good as I could. And afterwards I said, "Hey, have you thought about possibly replacing the heads?" And she's like, "Oh, wow, I didn't know how to do that. Like, I don't know. I know that's a thing, but I don't know what heads to get." Or she's, obviously like a kind of fairly beginner player or whatever, a couple of years, I guess. And so, we talked we followed up afterwards, and I ordered her a set of Aquarian heads, went over to her place, helped her put them on and tune up the kit. And she was like, "Oh my God, this sounds like a completely different drum set now." And she was so happy with it. And I said, "Man, absolutely. Like it's such a big thing. It's not just about buying the drums. You got to set them up, and you got to get the right heads for the style of music you want to play and the sound you want. You got to tune them up." So I know we've talked about that a million times before, but I just, we're talking about bringing the right kit to the gig. And, for a lot of students, you just got to get the kit you got sounding good.
Yeah.
Hey, Chip, we've got quite a few comments that people have written in here. Can you maybe share some of those on Facebook?
One of them is James B. Harrison said, "Classic story about the attitude and personality of a drummer's playing. Steve Gadd's kit was delivered for the Burning for Buddy recording sessions. I believe it was Peart, Wackel, and one other that were hitting the drums, and they remarked about how dead and how bad the drums sounded. When Gadd came in without tuning, he played, and they couldn't believe how he made the drums sound versus what they thought when they played them."
Yeah, that's like that.
I know
That's a Logan story.
Yeah.
I've
heard that
firsthand
same
experience. A student of mine was the drum tech set up at the U of A. Steve Gadd was doing a drum clinic at the U of A, and they came in, and he said that they took this Yamaha kit and they tuned it with a drum dial, and they got it all definitely just sounding sweet and awesome. And Steve Gadd came in and took his drum key and messed the whole thing up. He got big old wrinkles in the toms, and it just, he tweaked it, and he sounded great. But when they played it, it sounded like ass. So it was like a really big deal about how Steve Gadd has a touch and feel on his drums and how he's able to make the drums sound.
I've heard that about Gad's kit too. I heard the same story that somebody said that Charlie Watts's drum set just sounded terrible. Just when you sat down behind it and you'd hit Charlie Watts's kit, that sounded terrible. But then he'd sit down and play, and it was Charlie Watts. It was just so musical.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like only King Arthur can pull the sword out of the rock, you know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Very well. Yeah. I think that whole thing about your sound does come from, the way that you are inside.
Yeah.
It really does. It really does.
You know what? I'm glad you said that, Bart. I agree. I think that you can almost, like, when you really get to know a person, you can hear their personality in the way they play the drums.
Totally.
No doubt.
Yep. Completely.
Yep.
Completely. I think it's very and I think that could probably be said of any musical instrument.
Yeah.
It's an extension of your soul, I mean it. And I think too, and I tell my students this all the time, if there are certain things that you like outside of drumming, right, almost as an extracurricular thing, I like NFL football, blam, that person, and that's what I live for, they're going to play that way, you know what I mean? It's just an extension of who they are.
I think it could get really, really deep, because I think you can work on your personality through your craftsmanship on the drums. Like let that personality shine. I see it sometimes. People might be really timid, or younger people who might not have great conversational skills. And you see that in their drumming. They don't have a voice on the drums. And then as time goes by, they just start loosening up and getting more relaxed and, taking more risks, right? For younger people, sometimes the conversation is a risk. It's kind of scary to converse because, they haven't evolved that skill. And so if you start doing it on the drums, then maybe it can start happening in other ways. So everyone should play drums.
Well, and conversely, like, as a drummer, if there can be things that you might do in your life that will change the way you play the drums. Like, take yoga, for example. I know, Bart, you're a practitioner of it, right? And
yes,
Bart plays. When he plays, you can watch him and you listen to him. He's super relaxed. I have never seen Bart play with his shoulders hunched up by his ears, and his biceps all flexed like he's all, ready to squeeze the lemon juice out of the sticks. He's relaxed. He's smooth. And I think, I don't know if that's because you do yoga, but it goes hand in hand,
I appreciate that very much. I really do. I think it is something where you, again, it's part of your soul and who you are. And I think that you're going to bring to the table, what you put into it in life in general, yoga, all that sort of stuff. And I had no idea there was lemon juice in these things.
Oh yeah. If you eat a lot of turkey sandwiches, you sound like a turkey when you play. I don't know.
Awesome. Okay. Well, listen, on that note, I want to give a very special thank you to the sponsor of our show. We've been doing it, the sponsorship plug in different areas of the broadcast. Today we're doing it at the end. I want to give a really special thank you to Centerstream Publishing. They are just a fantastic publisher. They have a little bit of everything for everybody. And not only drum stuff, but also they have they have different things for mandolin. They have things for guitar. They have books for piano, for voice. They have a lot of history books. This particular one here is the ASAP drums rudiment handout that I was involved with. Ron, the guy that owns Centerstream, wanted me to plug this because it's a drum show. And it's a simple 4-page handout. It's got the original 26 rudiments with the snare drum solo that I wrote on the back of it. You can get that at Centerstream Publishing. You can also go to my website, bartrobley.com, and you can get that there. It's cheap. It's $5. It's a great supplement to have in your arsenal, not only if you're a drummer, but if you're a drum teacher. It's $5, people. It's cheap. I'm practically giving it away. I also want to say this as a plug to everybody else. If you go to chipritter.com, you're going to be able to get Snare Force 1 and Sticks, Tricks, and Showmanship, the name of his DVD. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay. You go to rickstojak.com and you are going to get How to Build a Drum Groove.
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy Steinkoller's website, Finding the Groove. It's right up there with the Old Testament. It is an amazing book.
Well, you know, they're in Louisiana, they're actually making it mandatory that Finding the Groove is read in all classrooms now.
Maybe I'll move to Louisiana. But I want to say thank you to Centerstream Publishing. And if you guys are drum teachers or just a drummer and you want to work on your rudiments, you want to get some of the grooves, you can get this stuff at all of our websites. You can go to drummersedcon.com. You can buy yourself a Drummers Education Connection t-shirt or coffee mug. And thank you for tuning in, watching the show today. And one lucky person is going to win the dream date with Chip Ritter down over there in Tucson, Arizona. That's been our running joke, but I'm guarantee you somebody's going to win it, and they're going to get a fillet of fish on Chip. It's going to be a
There you go.
And I just need to shut up. Rick, play the drums. We're done.
All right,
We're done.
Thank you, everybody.